Hello, class. Welcome to week 9. Shift this over here so it doesn't go rocketing to the floor. This semester has really gone by fast, hasn't it? The summer has gone by kind of fast. It seems like every time I blink, it's another week goes by. Some of you have been very involved in the discussion board. Some of you have been very involved with my comp lab, and I applaud your efforts. Some of you disappeared after half the class, and I've been trying to contact you and figure out what's going on. I understand, like I said, the summer is one of those times where it's more tempting to be outside, more tempting to be doing other things than homework. One student I had actually last summer had actually added me as a friend on Facebook even before the class began. I didn't really know who it was. But he constantly said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so late. So sorry, I'm so late with my assignment." Every time he posted to Facebook, he was always playing video games or something. Yeah, we see where his priorities lie. Anyways, this week we're still looking at arguing for a position. Last week we looked at coffee. No, it's not decaf. And this week we're looking at the story, the myth of media violence. Media violence. I like what Jason said about how he actually tied it into the Colorado shooting. And my heart goes out to all the victims out there of this massacre. What's fascinating to me is that this guy was not a sociopath. I mean, at least that I can see. He was a brilliant, intelligent young man who had, he was going for his doctorates. He had everything going for him. I really wish sometimes that I had majored in psychology to understand how these people think or don't. It's interesting. Over the past 20 to 25 to 30 years, we've seen copycat people who copycat what they see on television. Believe it or not, it actually started long before that. People emulated the Beatles. They started that whole long hair thing, and then later on, a lot of people liked Scarface, and they actually would dress in the snake, those coats. And I'm not talking about young kids either. I'm talking about older adults, maybe going through a midlife crisis or so. Media violence is one of those things that is still very controversial. You have on one hand some people saying, this is getting ridiculous. All we're seeing is blood and gore on television or in the movies or in video games. But on the other hand, what's the alternative? Censorship. I think it was Mark Twain who once said, censorship of speech is kind of like telling a grown man he can't eat a steak because a baby can't handle it. Okay, it's a little bleak, but we'll go along with that. Because of a select few who can't handle doing something, we have to ban it. This also ties into notions of the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. Some people argue that if we outlaw guns, only outlaws will have them. There have been people have argued for a position about Australia. Australia, I believe, outlawed guns, and they have actually a very high crime rate. Just throwing some ideas out there for those of you who have not picked a topic yet or you want to explore this topic. Colorado has seemed to be one of the few places where there's been quite a few shootings. I mean, we had that church killing a number of years ago. I remember Columbine very well. And this one recently. And in fact, there was actually a copycat killer or somebody who was actually planning on, maybe he did bring a gun into a movie theater in Maine. Check out the Herald for that. I'm a little sketchy on the details. But back to media violence in general. One of my friends was telling me a long time ago he went to see a movie, and it was Gone in 60 Seconds. And it was the original movie back in the 70s. And they actually, the way that they did it in the film, they actually showed you unscrewing the ignition wires and putting them together. So he went out into the parking lot after the movie, and he did it. And he got away with a 69 Dodge Charger, a 70 Dodge Charger. And there was a rash of theft after this particular film. And people said, you can no longer show exactly how you would do something like that in a film. And I think the same thing goes for, chemical bombs. You can't really show people how to do these things because people will copycat them. Video games seem to be a particular area where people just seem to target. And I will say that there is a growing concern with violence on in video games. I used to be a gamer, and I stopped playing video games about maybe 10 or 15 years ago. Just I'm saying to myself, why am I spending so much time playing something that isn't real? And I respect people who do like to play video games. Um, but like especially the game Grand Theft Auto. A lot of people like playing these games, and there have been people have tried to make studies linking these types of games to violence in real life. Is it there? Is it not there? Really, what it comes down to is bias. Okay, and this is the second aspect of what I want to talk about today. Bias and agenda are two different concepts that share similar ideas. You can be biased against or for something. Myself, I love Ford trucks. I just always have. That's my bias. I favor Samuel Adams beer. My bias. Problem with that. Dunkin' Donuts coffee instead of Starbucks. I can't drink Starbucks. Bias is not wrong. Everybody has preferences in life. Okay. It becomes a problem when you try to take that bias and push it on other people. Okay, force them to go along with your beliefs. And this is what we call an agenda. And we see this an awful lot on the news, don't we? Bias and agenda. Why am I talking about this? Well, when you're reading newspaper articles for your essay or online articles, you need to really check the credibility of the source that you're using. All too many people, anybody can post anything online. And anybody can post anything and claim they have a doctorate when they really don't. There's no problem with putting anything on the internet. You really want to double check your sources. Make sure that they haven't been followed up with new information. It happens that the New York Times publishes corrections or they apologize for a statement. Okay. When you are arguing for a position in your papers, okay, you want to use sources that have more fact to them than opinion. Everybody's got an opinion. You know how it goes. The opinions are like, yeah. You want to make sure that the sources that you are using have facts, have some substantial information to them, not just somebody's ranting. Okay, and if you go to the editorial opinion page, like the Boston Globe or the Herald, there are some substantial, posts in there where somebody has actually taken the time to do research, and then there's just some mindless ranting and fruitcakes and stuff. You want to tend to try to stay away from those, because many times they're making claims. These people with opinionated articles, they may make claims that are not even true. They're just passionate about what they're talking about, and their way is their way, and they disagree with anybody who disagrees with them. Okay, which leads me to another thing that I want to talk about, and that is slamming the other side that you are disagreeing with. Let's say you're picking a controversial topic like abortion. I'm not going to state my opinion on it, okay? But I did have a student who, my first summer of teaching, she actually wrote an essay on abortion. And, I mean, she used the most slanted, biased, hateful language possible. She slammed anybody who disagreed with her. She insulted in her paper anybody who disagreed with her. And I called her out after class and I said, listen, you can't do this. This is not a persuasive essay. This is, a bare knuckle fight. You can't do that. You're supposed to guide somebody into your argument, not just punch him in the face. And she was so offended by my comments, even though I was as nice as I possibly could be, and it's Oregon. But I'm going to warn you, please, be not neutral in your argument, but try to be as anti-inflammatory as possible when you are arguing for a position. You're already picking a controversial topic that, is designed, I mean, by its very nature, is going to inflame emotions. You don't want to add, gasoline to the fire by using language that could potentially upset the other side. That doesn't mean be wishy-washy. Just means watch what you're saying. Okay. We see this all the time on the news. Okay. People say things all the time that are inflammatory, and then oftentimes the next day we see a retraction or, oh, my words were taken out of context. Well, how could that possibly be taken out of context? Okay. So for your final essay, which is, I believe, due August 4th, okay, you're going to want to really focus on crafting an essay that's about 2,500 words long, where you're taking a side and you're really staying on it, okay, and you're really being persuasive. Now, what I like to do when I'm writing a persuasive essay, you're going to obviously have your introduction, okay, and what we talked about, engaging introductions, okay. You're going to want the next paragraph to be somewhat of a definition of terms. Okay, if there are if you're using words in your essay that people do not understand, you're going to want that paragraph to be your definition paragraph. Don't go over people's heads. Okay, if you're picking a really deep topic, maybe you want to bring it down to somebody's level. Okay, always keep your audience in mind. Does your audience know more than you, know less than you, or about the same as you? And that varies with the topic. Okay. After that, you would have your three main points. Okay. Then you want to really bring in the other side. Maybe talk about what some of the points that they have. Making concessions is a powerful way to help people understand that you're not biased yourself, that you don't have an agenda. Okay. It's a powerful way to show that you acknowledge the other side exists and that they have some good points. Okay. And then, of course, you have your conclusion where you either project into the future or, talk about current trends or something like that. It really should not be rocket science, okay? But this essay should incorporate the in-text citations. I did not see a lot of them for essay 2. Make sure you're using in-text citations every time you quote, paraphrase, or summarize. It's very important, okay, guys? I will be docking heavily on that. And I'm not kidding. Okay. And then of course you have your references page. The references page, you need to follow the format that I gave you a sample essay. There's a references page there. Follow that format. Okay. I don't know if anybody ever read that sample that sample essay that I gave you. But that's a good way of take a look at what standard format for an essay is, what a real good essay looks like. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be posting to my comp lab throughout the week. To the portal throughout the week. Okay. And I know one student out there has been having some trouble submitting an assignment to my comp lab. Has anybody else been having a problem with this? If so, post it to Facebook. Tell me what the problem is. Maybe others are as well, so we can get to the bottom of this, because it seems like this semester has really been plagued with problems. I've contacted tech support quite a few times, and they've said, nope, no problem here. All right. Have a good week, and I'll see you on Facebook.